المتحدث التالي يقدم عرض بعنوان تحليل البيانات الضخمة وتأثيرها على الأعمال واتخاذ القرارات. هو المدير التنفيذي للشراكات الدولية بجامعة ولاية ميتشيجان الأمريكية، الأستاذ كلينتون هانت.
So thank you very much. Very pleased to be here. Pleased to be talking to you about data, business, and the impact of business analytics on business. So my name is Clynton Hunt. I'm the Managing Director of International Partnerships for Bisk Education, representing Michigan State University. Just a quick show of hands, how many people have heard of Michigan State University? There's a few, that's great. And how many have actually been to Michigan State University? That's good, a few people. So those few people who've been there will be able to tell you that winter is a terrible time to be in Michigan, but at other times of the year it's actually a very nice place. So just in terms of a little bit of information on Michigan State University, Michigan State University is one of the leading research universities in the United States today. It has 50,000 students in 200 undergraduate and graduate degree programs in 17 degree granting colleges. Michigan State is a top-ranked university in many fields, including being number one in secondary teachers education, industrial and organizational psychology, and nuclear physics, so a pretty diverse range of topics. In business, it is very highly ranked, and its programs including business analytics, which is ranked number 5 in the country, both in terms of undergraduate and graduate. In terms of research, Michigan State has groundbreaking programs such as biophysical sciences, packaging, and supply chain management. So I think you're probably going to find it very difficult to see the details on that slide, but speaking of supply chain management, and certainly considering the audience today, Michigan State University is the top-ranked university for supply chain management and logistics, according to US News and World Report. That's in both undergraduate, so bachelor's level, and graduate level, master's degrees, and has been number 1 for 9 consecutive years. So when you look at the top 6, this is the top 6 universities. You can see Michigan State there at number 1. You've got Arizona State, you've got Penn State, you've got Ohio State, you've got their state rival from Michigan, the University of Michigan, and then at number 6, you've got one of the highest ranked universities in all of the world, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. So obviously, Michigan State University is keeping very good company in supply chain and in business. So to start, why should we care about analytics? Our business is doing just fine, and our reports are giving us a good view on where we are. A lot of businesses will say this. The reality is that most successful companies recognize that even to just sustain their position, they need to constantly be watching the market, watching trends, anticipating change, driving change, and innovating. What businesses ever survive long-term by being complacent and maintaining the status quo, especially in today's technology-driven, increasingly globalized world. So data and analytics are driving change. One of the biggest purveyors of change, as you've probably already seen today, and I'm sure you'll see over the course of this conference, is Amazon. Amazon is immersed in analytics at all levels of their organization. Business analytics is all about value creation. That can be measured in many ways. Cost reductions, increased profitability, increased market share, product or service innovation, increased customer loyalty, retention, and reduced customer churn. There are really 3 critical foundational areas that make up analytics: business, data, and the analytics tools themselves. business is really the most critical place to start. As analytics gets implemented within an organization, we often focus on the data, and you'll hear terms like big data. But companies really need to start with the business problem. What type of problem can we attack based on our knowledge of the organization, our knowledge of the industry, our products and services, in a way that we can create value by improving the decision making. And so a focus on business allows us to align analytics to value creation within the enterprise. Data analysis allows us to make sense of the data. So we're drawing a distinction between data analysis and business analytics here. Data analysis allows us to make sense of the data and to generate insights from the data. But business analytics analyzes data in order to help us solve specific problems in the business, help us make decisions, and help us to create value. It combines a deep understanding of the business with data for greater business intelligence. So here, when we think about data, many people have a very narrow view of what that is. For many, it's transactional data, such as sales and purchases, that we traditionally store in an ERP system. So in looking at how data has evolved over time, most organizations have started with the database environments, their structured data. In the 90s, so that's the ERP, bottom left of that diagram. In the 90s, many companies were excited about applying analytical tools to their consumer data, to their customer data, so they, to better segment different types of customers, and to identify which customers were potentially going to churn or to leave the organization for a competitor. So customer relationship management, or CRM, was widely applied in many different companies. And the idea of business intelligence associated with CRM in many ways forms the foundation of what we're doing in analytics, in the analytics space today. As internet commerce has evolved, a company's website and the type of information or transactions that are delivered via the website have become a significant and very important channel to reach stakeholders, customers, as well as others. And finally, we have the notion of big data. You can see up the top there, big data. And what this really describes is the variety and the complexity. We have data coming from RFID devices, which are able to tell us which products have entered or exited a facility. It may be a YouTube video. It may be capturing data associated with a customer service interaction. Any opportunity for digital communication between our company and our stakeholders allows us to better understand what types of communication, what types of video, what types of images create interest by our customers or create a purchase behavior by our customers that we want to understand. So I apologize for this slide. It's incredibly difficult to see. This was provided to me by one of the analytics professors at Michigan State University. I don't know how she could possibly use this in class because it's impossible to read. But the purpose of this slide is to simply illustrate the proliferation of big data tools and technologies. Some of these tools and companies you'll be very familiar with, others you will never have heard of. And when you look at this slide a month from now will be different. The slide 6 months from now will be very different. The slide a year previous, very different. There is constant change in this space. So we talk about big data. And really there is so much data available today that the word big doesn't even do it justice. Just look at Facebook. There are 1.8 million likes and 200,000 photos uploaded to Facebook every minute. Facebook alone generates over 30 billion individual pieces of content every single day. When we consider Walmart, the US retail giant, using point-of-sale technology, Walmart captures every customer transaction as they pay for their groceries or other goods. This results in over 1 million transactions per hour that Walmart is able to capture and then analyze to better understand their merchandising plan, to promote their products, and most importantly, for them to develop their pricing strategy. Again, that's over 1 million transactions per hour. So if we look at the bigger picture, and let's take a 1-minute snapshot, there are 204 million emails sent. Amazon makes $83,000 worth of online sales every minute, and I think this is a little out of date because I'm sure it's more than that. If you look at Google, there are over 4 million search queries per minute using Google, with over 3.5 billion search queries performed every single day. This allows Google to analyze the search data, understand what is trending, use those trends to reach out to companies, suggesting that they advertise with certain types of searches, and repricing the advertising costs associated with those searches in order to maximize profit for both themselves and their organizations that are using Google as a platform to reach their customers. So how much data are we talking about? So we're going to use a grain of rice to represent 1 byte of data. That equates, in terms of a kilobyte, to 1 cup of rice. And if we continue on, a megabyte is 8 bags of rice. A gigabyte is 3 semi-trucks full of rice. A terabyte is 2 container ships. A petabyte covers Manhattan, New York City. An exabyte covers the west coast states of the US, California, Washington, and Oregon. A zettabyte fills the Pacific Ocean. So you can think about the Pacific Ocean full of rice. The total volume of data today is measured in zettabytes, which is 1 followed by 21 zeros. If we think in terms of that, in terms of storage, a typical iPad might hold 32 gigabytes of information. A zettabyte would involve almost 50 billion iPads. That's an enormous volume of data that is continuing to grow. So let's start to just think about the organization and the stages of sophistication in the use of analytics in an organization. So in a 5-stage, and this is all models developed by Michigan State, but in a 5-stage pyramid of analytics sophistication, many organizations find themselves in stage 1. That's analytically impaired. And the most significant way to know if you fall into this category is if you look at your data. If your data is localized, there is not an enterprise integration of the data. If the data tends to be dirty, where there is a great deal of uncertainty or inaccuracy about the data, then you would be an organization that's currently in stage 1, analytically impaired. To evolve to stage 2, localized analytics in green, we see organizations invest, perhaps in a specific business unit or specific functional area, to clean data, to make it accessible so that data can be more deeply analyzed. Organizations then typically evolve into an analytical aspirant, which is stage 3, the blue. These types of organizations have top leadership that have become aware and enthusiastic about applying analytics within the organization. Often they've developed processes in order to make analytics a capability that is getting visibility and generating outcomes in the organization. In addition, data tends to be much more integrated. The 4th stage, analytical companies, which is the orangey color, are those organizations that have recognized the value that analytics can create and are investing in greater enterprise technologies and human capital. Organizations at this stage have evolved beyond integrated data and are making the data accessible for further analysis. So this is analysis in other areas and other functional areas across the organization. Finally, those few organizations that have currently made it to stage 5, which is the analytical competitors, which is obviously very few, are those that really view their analytics capabilities as a strategic advantage. Data is a strategic asset. I'm sure no one's going to disagree with that. These types of organizations view their analytics capability as critical to the firm's success and have world-class professionals who are able to use these techniques in a way to really generate value for the different problems that are being focused on. So examples, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all obvious examples. But you see this across all industries. There are examples of companies who are analytical competitors in all areas. When you look at new market entrants who have analyzed data and have identified a gap that they're looking to fill, they're seeking to fill, analytics is part of their DNA, of the DNA of these younger companies. These companies are entirely focused on analyzing data and exploiting gaps in the market and opportunities. So where are businesses today? While organizations are accumulating an enormous volume of data, it's interesting to see how many organizations are undertaking more sophisticated and robust analysis of data in order to create value. So a research survey of 1,000 businesses found that many were still in the early stages. 24% consider themselves to be in the educate stage, where they were gathering knowledge and observing the market. They were still not entirely clear on how to make use of data that they had gathered. 47% were in the explore stage, where they were developing strategies and a roadmap whereby they could start to apply data to addressing business needs. However, this exploration is often very limited in scope. It could be departmental. 22% were engaged, where they had a specific initiative that they were piloting in order to qualify the value and define the broader requirements. Only 6% of organizations reported that they had executed one or more big data analytics initiatives and were applying outcomes to business decisions. You can see from this that 70% of organizations consider that they are still in the early stages of trying to understand the value of data and how they can go about applying analytics to solve business problems. This is something that you see in many organizations, including many that are large and are seen as leaders in their organization. So why is this? One thing to be clear on here, when we start to look at people within an organization, business does not happen solely in IT or in an analytics department. It happens in sales, it happens in marketing, happens in finance, HR, operations departments, right across the organization. It happens where business problems are being faced and decisions are being made. For that to happen, you need people who are skilled and committed to analytics in all departments. So when you start to look at a typical enterprise, you find that the majority of employees are analytical amateurs. That's in that bottom 70 to 80%, whose ability to analyze data and use tools is pretty much limited to spreadsheets. Far fewer individuals fall into the analytical semi-professionals category, being those who can use simple visualization and analytics tools such as Microsoft Power BI to create their own reports and dashboards. Beyond this, most businesses have very few individuals that have the depth of knowledge and expertise that would drive more sophisticated analytics initiatives. So what does this mean in terms of how businesses are actually using data? How sophisticated are their business analytics competencies? For many organizations, data has been a fundamental source of reporting outcomes, trying to understand what happened and where it happened. And this actually made me think, when I was thinking about this particular slide last night when I couldn't sleep, thinking back to the early to mid-90s to an organization that I worked with when I live in Boston, so when I first moved to Boston. Working for an very large educational software company. My first job with them was as a sales analyst. And we were selling our educational programs, which were CD-ROMs and DVDs, both into schools, but also into the retail channel. So to the likes of Best Buy, Staples, Office Max, Walmart, grocery stores, toy stores, computer stores, etc. One of the most important reports that I had to generate on a monthly basis was a sell-through report. So looking at sell-in to our retail channel and then getting reporting back from our retail customers on sell-through. What products are actually selling through, what end users were actually buying which products. The data that we got back from our retail customers came in many forms. It was spreadsheets in some cases, so it was digital, but in some cases it was faxes. I would get a fax from a store manager at a Best Buy that showed me in handwritten numbers and SKUs what they'd sold for that particular month. So in terms of the accuracy of the data and the quality of the data we were getting, not particularly good. But we were using that to make decisions on what programs were working, what promotions were working, what sort of exposure did we have to inventory returns for products that weren't selling. When I look today at the way businesses are doing the same sorts of things, the reporting is much better. The accuracy is much better. The quality of the data is much better. I talk to businesses in the US, across the Middle East, India, the UK, and other parts of the world, and talk to them about analytics and data and what they're doing, how are they using data to make decisions. And the thing that surprises me is a lot of what I was doing back in the early to mid-90s, which is in that reporting and ad hoc query exploration area, continues. Even though the data that's available is infinitely better than what was available 30 years ago, the actual level of analysis that is taking place hasn't changed for a lot of organizations much beyond what I was dealing with back then. So this clearly isn't true for all companies, however. As organizations evolve and begin to invest in analytics capabilities, there's a greater emphasis on key performance indicators. So you can see as you move up the diagram there. To try to understand exactly what may have occurred in a given region of a company's domain for a certain product or a certain service. Analytical insights that help to understand trends, the impact of certain activities such as promotions or competitor programs, the impact of market disruptors and innovation, and so on, contribute to presenting a more informed, predictive view. And as we move deeper into an analytics capability using data mining techniques and applying visualization to really understand the data, we can move towards a more innovative capability that has an impact on our strategic products and our services, and perhaps even on how we're positioned in the industry. All of the extensive research that Michigan State has conducted makes it clear that in order to be a data-driven company, simply having data is not enough. A culture that commits to data analysis and requires validation from data and decision-making across the enterprise needs to develop. What we think is not enough today. Ad hoc data-driven insights may create some excitement within an organization, but in isolation, they are insufficient to transform a company into one that is truly data-driven. Strong leadership is required. Leadership needs to create a culture that enforces managers at all levels to talk about what we know based on the information that is extracted from our data. And leadership doesn't simply mean the CEO. This includes senior leadership as well as managers who act as champions of data in marketing, sales, customer service, all areas of the organization. Capabilities. MSU researchers speak with companies all the time about the analytics capabilities and where they are and where they want to be. As previously mentioned, most companies feel that they are in their infancy, and many don't even really know where to start. It's important to recognize that these capabilities very much develop over time. As individual successes occur, it allows your organization to understand more ways, and perhaps more sophisticated ways, that analytics can be used for creating value. And finally, human capital is critical for the development of capabilities. Organizations have big demand for people who can tell the story of the data. They understand how to gather and analyze data, and then apply to a business problem or need with in-depth understanding of the business of the organization. An investment in human capital, utilizing the great people that I'm sure many of your businesses have already in your organization, and helping them to become champions of data is essential. So just when we start applying analytics to supply chain management, we want to start to quantify the value of analytics in supply chain. Research undertaken by IBM helps to define potential benefits of applying analytics to all stages in the supply chain. So in the planning stage, IBM estimate 2 to 5% saving in manufacturing costs. As we continue to move through the plan, source, make, and deliver stages, we see potential for increased efficiencies and reduced costs at all points in the supply chain. Inventory optimization can result in a 10 to 30% cost reduction. Procurement spend optimization can produce a 25% spend reduction. And analytics helps to reduce costs after sale with improved warranty and repair processing and reduction of excess parts inventory. I know we've already seen UPS up on at least one other presentation, but I'm going to use UPS as an example. If we look at UPS has been optimizing its delivery routes since the 1970s by favoring right-hand turns at all times unless the left-hand turn is unavoidable. UPS estimates that it saves 10 million gallons of fuel each year and avoids emissions equivalent to over 20,000 passenger cars. There's also a safety factor. A study on crash factors in intersection-related accidents from the US National Highway Traffic Safety Association shows that turning left is one of the leading critical pre-crash events, occurring in 22.2% of crashes as opposed to 1.2% for right turns. About 61% of crashes that occur while turning or crossing an intersection involve left turns, as opposed to just 3.1% involving right turns. So that is 61% crashes on the left, 3.1 on the right. It's best to turn right. UPS has also created its own maps, which it says are more accurate than commercially available one. Google Maps has no concept of not making a left-hand turn. It shows only the most direct way to the destination. In 2008, UPS launched a routing software to calculate the best possible route for each truck while favoring right-hand turns, called Orion. It took 10 years to get it right. UPS, which makes 18 million deliveries a day in the US, says that Orion analyzes 250 million address points a day and performs 30,000 route optimizations per minute. This saves the company $300 to $400 million annually in fuel, wages, and vehicle running costs. Their basic routing strategy already allowed them to save $85 million miles. When they added Orion, it shaved off an extra 100 million miles, pushing the savings to 185 million miles per year. If we look at Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola's view of the market is very much focused on the end user and the consumer, being the consumer. What we're looking at here are two machines that offer self-service Coke products. One of those machines is a very dumb machine. I'm sure you can tell which one the dumb machine is. It just serves soda and a very limited number of flavors. When Coke introduced their new Coca-Cola Freestyle systems back in 2009, they did so because they recognized that consumers wanted variety and a lot more than the old fountain machines could offer. Freestyle allowed customers to choose their own mixes for their favorite Coke products. So Coke with lime, Coke with vanilla, Fanta and grape, and so on. Customers loved them, and for Coke, it was a data windfall. Freestyle is connected to the internet, which allows Coke to track real-time activity across thousands of locations around the country and around the world. It allows them to see what flavor combinations are the most popular by retail partners such as McDonald's, by geography, by time, and much more. They also have real-time information on supply needs, as well as performance and maintenance requirements of the Freestyle unit. Another benefit of all the data is that it gave Coke insight into preferences that it had never been able to get from other forms of new product research, such as focus groups. Coke had long experimented with new flavors for its bottling business, often with mixed results. In the early 2000s, it introduced, then discontinued, then reintroduced various forms of Coke Cherry and vanilla. They had no way of truly testing consumer demand short of introducing new products to the market. Freestyle changed all that. When the Sprite team began exploring options for its next flavor innovation, consumer data from Coca-Cola Freestyle pointed to a new fan favorite. Since the interactive fountain dispensers debuted in 2009, restaurant and retail guests had been adding a splash of cherry, a cherry flavor, to their beloved lemon lime sparkling beverage. It was a huge aha moment for Coke. The fact that cherry was the #1 Sprite flavor mix on Coca-Cola Freestyle inspired them to create an all-new product for Sprite fans in a convenient on-the-go bottle, as you can see here. The launch of Sprite Cherry and Sprite Cherry Zero marked the first time insights from Coca-Cola Freestyle inspired the national rollout of a new beverage. So this is a good example of the Internet of Things, devices, systems connected to the internet, providing access to real-time data. Analytics also allow airlines such as Delta to use data mining to track events such as maintenance issues that result in flight delays and baggage handling errors, and cross-reference those with passenger manifests to identify a sequence that may negatively impact the loyalty of very, very profitable, valuable, frequent flyers. Businesses today are increasingly focused on the customer, including the total cost of customer acquisition and retention. Analytics often shows that the lifetime value of a loyal customer is far greater than some additional investment required to keep them. So in the case of valuable frequent flyers whose satisfaction with the airline may be tested due to multiple flight delays in a relatively short periods of time, they put systems in place to proactively respond. This automated process occurs as soon as the analytics identifies a defined event. In one example, a CEO experienced 2 maintenance-related delays within a 2-week period and returned home after a second trip to find a letter of apology from the airline, 2 first-class upgrades, and 2 round-trip tickets for any time in the next year. This occurred without him ever having reported any dissatisfaction. Data mining and other types of analytics activities give us the capability to perform these specific, personalized messages with targeted action in order to minimize customer churn. So one final point from Michigan State relating to the critical nature of analytics in order to remain competitive. MSU work with both businesses as well as state and federal governments. One example of a glaring problem that they are seeing in the government sector is in procurement. State government procurement offices traditionally manage the procurement process for state agencies. This typically involves researching and defining the requirements, issuing an RFP, evaluating bids, making recommendations, and supporting the award. This process can take up to 6 months. The procurement offices are now under enormous pressure from the likes of AWS, who can access all necessary data, which is often in the public domain, map that against its wealth of product and service data, and respond in a matter of hours. So we're comparing months to hours. State agencies are increasingly managing this process themselves through AWS, bypassing state procurement offices. Clearly, the lack of a well-defined analytics capability can seriously threaten the relevance and value of an organization. So I just wanted to finish up by sharing some information on programs that Michigan State has been offering in supply chain management and business analytics for a number of years. These certificate courses, which utilize master's level curriculum, are designed for professionals and organizations needing upskilling in these key areas. Companies need their employees to perform these roles effectively, but also need managers and leaders to be capable of contributing to the strategic direction of the businesses. So what you see up here is some examples of some of the organizations who are putting large cohorts of their employees into programs offered by Michigan State University in these certificate courses. So Boeing, Johnson & Johnson, there are even examples here of companies who have in-house academies where courses are customized in supply chain and business analytics for these organizations. Early this year, we formed international partnerships around these programs. Today, we have partnerships across the Middle East, in India and Southern Africa. In Saudi Arabia, our partner is Mali, who are exhibiting here. We also have partnerships with the University of Dubai, BPro, which is a management training company in Jordan, the Times of India, which is the largest news media company in India, and SP Jain Institute of Management and Research in India. These are just an example in this part of the world. So the two 24-week programs that we're offering in partnership with Mali are in Management Development Program in Integrated Supply Chain Management and the Management Development Program in Business Analytics. Both have been approved by the TVTC. This is a horrible slide, but what you can see here is just an example of some of the courses, some of the content of the courses in each of those programs. If you're interested in any additional information or hearing more about Michigan State University, I am here at the Mali stand for the next couple of days. Thank you very much.